I reconnected with my parents after a decade of not talking to each other. And I don't remember exactly when it was. Like there was no cutoff, like I'm not talking to my parents anymore. It was more like I can't get myself to call. Every time I spoke with them, I felt smaller. I felt like I was doing something wrong. I felt like I was holding my breath. And I was trying to be what they wanted me to be, but I was not at the same time. Like I I didn't curse around them. I sort of was like a good girl, like I was in church or something, you know? And then I would just live a regular life that I wasn't embarrassed by, but that I think I know they wouldn't approve of because they wanted me to get married to a specific person with specific beliefs and have kids and do the thing that a lot of parents have in the history of time expected from their children. And that's the thing. It seemed very reasonable for them to want certain things, especially because they gave me those things, like they gave me religion, they gave me a life that was, you know, you didn't want for anything, right? I had my needs and I was just supposed to do the next right thing culturally, religiously, and I wasn't going that way. So we would butt heads all the time, and they couldn't have even liked hanging out with me either. That's why I'm like, wait, did I stop talking to them or did they stop talking to me? As parents, I'm sure it just feels like I stopped talking to you, and I'll take that. It might have been that. I think just time just increased between calls and being in touch, and then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, I'm not talking to them. And when they started to make contact, I was like, no, I'm already there. It's been so long that now I am actively not talking to you. And my mom would send care packages, which the first one I just stared at for days like I was in some movie, which I guess is where they get movie stuff from real life. It was very confusing because, like it feels terrible. Your parents are active and alive and you're just not speaking to them. It feels petty. It feels sad. I heard from other people who were not talking to their parents. Some of them regret it because they died. Some of them didn't regret it because it just was the way it was. Some of them reconnected. Some of them decided to only talk about the weather and really just surface things. And I would just collect information, and I still wouldn't call. I still wouldn't get in touch. And it felt really petty some days, very, very sad all the time. It was never comfortable not speaking to each other. It's not comfortable speaking and it's not comfortable not speaking. So I was choosing that route because it felt like I've been here before. Like I didn't really call too much, but then when I called, I would just feel this regret of, well, I'm not. It doesn't feel good. It feels like I'm always doing the wrong thing. Like I'm calling to be reprimanded. I'm calling to be judged and critiqued. And it was just exhausting. And I kind of opted out of that. And part of the sadness was then, after big things like divorce, I felt things like, I want to call my mommy. But it was this like Disney mommy. Disney's not the right word. It was this mommy that you would see on TV, like who was not a person, who didn't have their own thoughts. It was everything for my baby, and I understand that exists, but like it doesn't exist when you look at someone like they're absolutely human because they have to do things for themselves. They have to have their own opinions. And it can't be all for the baby. It doesn't, I don't think it's possible, and that's okay. So, I did question along the way, I'd be like, maybe I should just call. Like, who cares? What am I even mad about? And then I would remember that I had done that before. I had sort of broke a length of time of silence and was just like, well, here I am back to exactly the same conversation I've always been having. So, um, okay, I guess I'll call you again sometime soon. I'd be crying. Um, and I just left it at that. I just left it at um we're not talking. That happened in our family. And I didn't think we were the kind of family that happens in. Well, it is, everybody. That is the cliche. It can happen to you. And what else? I don't know. I have Googled them and Facebooked did them, but they're not active. They're not posting pictures of themselves. But sometimes when I'd miss them, I would do that. And that's weird to say. But it is getting me misty-eyed, which means that did affect me. And it's not like it didn't affect me. I didn't turn cold and it's just, well, that's the way it is. It's still, I was a person who didn't speak to their parents, like, ick, that's not who I saw myself as. And I'm sure they didn't, vice versa, didn't see themselves as, their version of it. And time went by and I was reading a book called The Happiest Man on Earth. Here, I wrote it down. The Beautiful Life of an Auschwitz Survivor by Eddie Jaku. And at the end of it, he survived so much. Shot at, tortured, starved, so many things. His parents were murdered, like just the whole thing. And at the end, he said, I can't believe I'm getting teary-eyed over this. It wasn't the first time I ever heard this. And even in a heavy emotional context, but for some reason, this one hit me. He said, if your mom's still alive, call her. And I'm not saying like that, oh, because now if this moved you, you need to call your parent. There's some parents that don't need to be called. There's some time that you can't. There's all of these things exist. And in that moment, I was like, okay. I also felt like, and maybe this is just in hindsight, or maybe this is just a coincidence, I felt like I had enough recovery to be able to call. And I don't mean like, oh, they were a drug or something. I mean, I had looked at myself, what kind of daughter I was, and I was a little bit of a pain in the ass. I could see how it was exhausting. And I can see that they did so well in so many ways, and that they came so far and progressed so much from their own parents. And the amount of effort that it takes to be an adult is so heavy. And I think it was always their intention to do the right thing. The right thing was, a little bit of old news for me. And I think it's very difficult to succumb to the new generation and their thoughts and feelings. But maybe you have to, maybe you don't. But in looking at all of that, what my part was in it, like not blaming myself, I get it. I think, it's kind of always the parents' fault. Why? Because everything that I got in my head was because you gave it to me, because you put me in this experience, because you raised me, because you nurtured me, and also whatever I was born with. I think it's both nature and nurture. Now, that being said, I'm not just going, everything terrible that I am or do or is against you is your fault. It's more like, everyone, I've had 30 years now of being an adult, over 30 years. So there's some stuff that I am very cool with now because it's enough. It's enough time. After I process that I wasn't such a delight, whether I got it from them or my environment, or I just was angry for it doesn't matter. I still lied to them. I still made their life a little bit harder. I also was a very good girl. I also worked for them. I did what was asked of me. I helped. That's the thing. When I talk about recovery, I talk about I am more who I am, and I don't need to respond to my parents with anything. Like, I don't have to be afraid. I can be a fully grown adult and take them as human beings. And whatever they say, I don't have to debate. I don't have to bring up, why didn't you do this when I was 16, when I was 19, when I was 12, when I was 6? Because they didn't. And it wasn't, at this point, it cannot be a big deal for me anymore. It has to be let go of, especially because there was good. There was good. There was bad on both sides, everybody. And I can go on, right? So all that math maybe was happening, maybe wasn't, but I felt secure enough at that moment, if anything. And I called up and I called my mom. Since last I spoke to them, they each got their own phone number. I got it from my brothers. I called my mom because that is who I talk to. My father gets information through her. They're very old school. So imagine, how mom reacts and how dad reacts. If you want stereotypes, they're pretty close to it. You want to talk to your mom? Yes, we all know I want to talk to my mom. And you just want to kind of grunt a little bit and sometimes tell a joke. And we're not really talking on the phone. But anyway, I called my mom. My father picked up. And I said, "Hi, Abba." I specifically said Abba because it means dad and because I have 2 brothers. And if I'm calling and saying, "Hi, Abba," it helps you get to who this is a lot faster. It can only be me. So I say, "Hi, Abba," and he says, "Who is this?" And it wasn't like a dismissive, like, new phone, who dis? Like, I don't know who you are. Although for a split second I was like, wait, is that what he's doing? But no, it didn't sound like it. He sounded confused because it was out of nowhere. So I said, "Hi, Abba." And he goes, "Who is this?" I think we said that twice. And I said, "It's me." I think I said my name because I was like, let me get him out of the confusion of this can't be, because we haven't heard from this person in so long. And he realized who it was. And my mom came on the phone, and I can't remember. I think I was probably on speaker. I think people their age love speaker, which is also, they're both in the same room. And my mother said things like, "Oh, wow, we're both crying." And I'm like, "Oh my God, are you allowed to tell me that dad is crying? Is he allowed to do that outside of his home, is he allowed for people to know that?" So they were crying. I was like, wow, my dad's crying. Whoa. And I was crying. And at some point I said, "I'm sorry." And my brothers asked me, "Why did you say you were sorry?" And I thought about it. I said, "I'm sorry because I was sorry that we lost a lot of time. I was sorry that they had to be in a relationship with their daughter who was estranged. I'm sorry for anything that would or could be my part in it. I'm sorry." So, but when I said I'm sorry, they didn't say for what. I think it is for whatever they think it is. My mother said, "Don't worry about it. We start from here." And I think that was a way bigger deal. First of all, it was like, yeah, let's start from scratch. I think I could feel a little butthurt by that, by going like, "What do you mean?" But that would mean I would rehash everything. Like, "Aren't you supposed to apologize?" Anything like that. It did not feel like that. I mentally agreed and audibly agreed. I said, "All right, fine, let's do that." And I thought, you know what? That's the only place that we can have a relationship from is right now. and we're not going to respond to any of the things that we did to each other or if we're starting from right now, we're both in agreement. And we did. We started from right there. We talked very regularly. They told me a little bit about it. They were just the missiles from Iran at the time in the summer of 2025. And we started being in touch. Unfortunately, my father died later that year, but it allowed me to automatically just know I was going to the funeral, where every time I thought of what if they died, would I go? Because they live in Israel. So would I go? Would the other one want me there, whichever one wasn't dead? How weird would it be if that's the first time I saw them again? So I had all these scenarios, and now it wasn't a question. My mom really did start from that day, and it was a given, and we all went to Israel, which I can talk about. The funeral and the Shiva was very interesting. But that's another time. That's how I reconnected. I don't expect anybody to have this story, but I do expect that people experienced at least some of it. I think it's like a big bowl of soup, and your bite was with some of my stories and some of other people's stories. And I think that's what's helpful about hearing other people's stories, is knowing that I can connect to the emotions and the activity behind what it feels like for you in some ways. And then I can understand a little more of it through somebody else's story, and understand it more of it as I tell my story, and just pick the things that are helpful, that help me get through it, not help me sit in it, help me clarify it so much that I can see the next step. And that's what I think storytelling is. It's like this connection and this way to clear things up and to understand them more, and I'm sure a lot of other things. But anyway, I'm getting off the topic. That was the story of my reconnection with my parents. What's yours? Thank you for subscribing to this. I hope you liked it. Bye.